We had a lot of interviews with healthcare professionals, and maybe the interviews were like 90 minutes or 2 hours. And then we had to transcribe everything that was said on the interview. And that was like the double of amount of time that we had taken to do the interviews. So that for me, it was a huge change in research that has changed after AI. Now we don't transcribe anymore. AI can orient and counsel you a bit, but the decision should always be taken by a person and after carefully reviewing all the information.
There's a lot of talk on synthetic data and synthetic AI. Are there some very specific reasons business are looking into synthetic users?
I could understand why companies do synthetic uses, and I'm not against it. I think it's a very good idea, but I don't think it's a valid idea for everything.
Hello, everyone. This is Research Secrets, a show where we uncover real user insights to build better products. Today, I have Ariadna Roman with me, joining from Spain. Ariadna, welcome to the show. I'm Wilson. I'm the co founder and CEO of Blog Survey. To get started, Ariadna, tell me a little bit about your background. Tell me a 2 minute story about yourself, and we can jumpstart.
Okay, thank you very much, first of all, for having me here. So, yeah, as you said, I'm Mariana Roman from Barcelona, in Spain, and I work as a senior researcher and service designer. So, I work across user research, innovation, customer experience, and I help organizations understand what people really need and turn those insights into better products, services, and experiences. So I've worked in different industries such as banking, healthcare, mobility, technology, for example, as well. And I guess we will talk about it a bit later, but I got into customer research a little bit by chance. So we will cover that, I guess, further on. But yeah, that would be who I am.
Sure. That's interesting. I think you said you started by chance. I wanted to know the backstory behind it. If you could share, how did it all this start?
Yeah. So when I first finished uni, so I was like 22, 21, more or less, and I started a job in banking. But I was thinking, oh, maybe I would like consulting because I don't know, I had studied international business, so I had seen many things but hadn't delved into many of them. I just knew things about marketing, about finances, about strategic management, about human resources, a lot of things, but I didn't know what I would like, right? So I was thinking, I'm going to get into consulting so that I get to be in different projects, work in different projects, and there I will understand what I am more fond of, right? So I started looking and I didn't know anything about customer experience apart from the obvious, or but I hadn't heard of it, or like customer journeys or anything, design thing, and I didn't know any of it. And I landed on a company called Anima, which was home to me for 7 years. And I didn't know at the time. When I went to the interview, I researched a little bit about it, but maybe as I had something in mind, maybe I was biased, I don't know, but I didn't know it was a company that was focused on user research. And yeah, this is where I discovered, this is where I would say my discipline or my organizational skills in when working with research come from. So this is why I say that it was by chance, because it was like a circus that I found this job, and I must have really liked it if I was there for 7 years. So yeah, that was it.
Great. Okay. Awesome. I think now that you've been in this space for 7 years, right? I think you would have seen the changes that has gone in the very much the space what we are working on with the world moving towards AI. Can you tell us how has AI changed the way you do customer research today?
Yeah. So I remember when I started, for example, there was a huge pain for us, which were the transcriptions of the interviews, of the focus groups, of the workshops that we carried out to get customer insights. So we transcribed it, everything. We transcribed it like word by word, sometimes even adding, oh, the person laughed or the person got serious or we wrote these comments. And that was a lot of time because, like I mentioned before, that we worked a lot with in the healthcare industry. So we had a lot of interviews with healthcare professionals, and maybe the interviews were like 90 minutes or 2 hours, and then we had to transcribe everything that was said on it, and that was like the double of amount of time that we had taken to do the interview. So if it was a 2 hours interview, that would mean that we would maybe take 4 hours to transcribe everything. So you can imagine, motivation wise, it was one thing. Also, business wise was another thing because you have to count that your team is investing 4 hours per every interview that you're doing, right? So that for me, it was a huge change in research that has changed after AI. Now we don't transcribe anymore. So now there's a tool called Dovetail, and so you record your interviews, and it's a very good tool not only to transcribe, but also to analyze what has been said. You can find specific quotes because that was something else. Not, for example, you interview a customer, and then when you do the report, you want to leave some quotes about what has been said on the report. So we had to go through all the transcript before. We had to go all over the transcript and look for the best quotes. Now it's so much easier to find those quotes. For example, oh, if we are talking about products, I can find those quotes easily. Also for classifying information is so much easier. Before we when we transcribed, we did it on an Excel, and then we have different Excel sheets, and then you had to classify the information. Now, for example, with this tool, we don't do that anymore. We put tags on what has been said, and it's so much easier. Like, for example, oh, okay, this is a pain point, or this is a pain point, or this is an opportunity someone is suggesting, and it's so much easier to write the reports thanks to this previous transcription and analysis. So I would say that's been a big change, business wise, and also in terms of motivation wise. I think everyone appreciated.
I could see that. I think it could have been certainly a huge burden, right? I think I could imagine transcribing all interviews, yeah, by hand. And then there's also sometimes a sense of worry or fear, right? A fear of missing out on maybe not transcribing certain key points. And
Yeah,
I understand
yeah.
it's a lot of work.
And that, I must say, that also happens with AI. For example, when we did it by person, we knew our team, right? So we knew that we were writing everything that was said on the interview. But sometimes with AI, it's not 100% accurate. There's some stuff that maybe I didn't catch, or they didn't. So there's always a little bit of grasp of doubt that I didn't get everything right, but still it's worth it. I know the way we did it, we used to do it before, so it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also heard that this is something that I also speak within my organization to understand how they use AI, right? I think sometimes if we completely let it in the hands of AI without supervision, we do know that I think it's bound to break, maybe it
Yeah,
might miss, right? But I think there I do feel that humans are still decision makers, right? I think so, just to interpret what AI is giving as outputs. I just want to understand, in your research space, what are some critical touch points where human decision making is still needed? Maybe I know
in
AI is more as a companion supporting you in the work what you do, but what are some touch points you still think that okay, humans should not move away from making these supervision and decisions?
Yeah, I think AI can orient and counsel you a bit, but the decision should always be taken by a person and after carefully reviewing all the information. I don't think that we have to observe what AI, for example, right? If I do some interviews and about a product that is to be launched, I wouldn't just trust on AI to take my decision. I would also review a little bit. Okay, maybe I wouldn't review it as we did before, word by word, but I think it's important to still read your descriptions, or maybe when you do the interview yourself, you have this information, right? So not only trust on what AI is giving you, but also the double check. And I think that would apply in every touch point, right? So way of doing this double check can be more extensive or less, depending on how big the decision is. But I think there's always the need of a human eye to check on the content that AI is providing. For example, now with maybe we're going to talk about that in a bit more ahead, but with the bump of synthetic users, I don't know if you've heard of it. So yeah, for example, I would be careful with that. I wouldn't take the decisions based on the solely information obtained by synthetic users. Sometimes companies want to use this kind of users because, of course, they are much cheaper than carrying out research or user research. But you always need to support this decision with with real data, and I think with real users as well.
For our audience to understand synthetic users, if you could briefly talk what is synthetic users, if you could educate, that would be helpful.
A synthetic user is basically a user that doesn't exist, but that has been created manually from the input of data of different customers out of the research. For example, if we had carried out previously interviews with, I don't know, with a target of people, for example, Gen Z, and we need to check if, I don't know, the viability of a product or a service with Gen Z, we have two options. We can either ask them, so carry out whatever research we want to do with them, be it interviews or focus groups or workshops, whatever, and ask them directly, or we could create our own synthetic users based on the previous information we have gathered about Gen Z and ask the same. Depending on how much information you've fed AI to create these synthetic users, you would get more accurate answers, similar to the ones you would get if you carried out the research with real users. But there we are forgetting, for example, that as humans, we are sometimes unpredictable, or sometimes we say we do things we don't do. And not because we are lying, it's how we work. Sometimes we are inconsistent or saying that something is very important for you, but then you don't do the things according to this statement, right? So these are things that you can discover, that you can find out in a not face to face, but in a doing research directly with the people. But these kind of things are omitted normally when you're doing it with synthetic user. So this is what I'm saying, that sometimes, okay, yeah, you can get a grasp of how a specific target would react after a product launch or a service launch or whatever. And of course, it's, as I said before, it's so much cheaper than carrying out actual research, right? But you have to be careful with the decisions that you take based on solely synthetic users. Yeah.
What are some reasons? It's interesting. I see there's a lot of talk on synthetic data and synthetic AI, and I'm trying to understand. So, do you see, are there some very specific reasons business are looking into, say, synthetic users? In your space, if you could tell us what are some reasons why businesses are getting into
in synthetic users, I guess one reason business wise is the cost. It's much more cheaper to create digitally these synthetic users than having to look for them and then interviewing them and then analyzing the information. There's a certain cost benefits that synthetic users have as an advantage compared to normal users or actual humans. I'd say that would be a reason. Then also another reason, I've also noticed that companies, compared to the previous years, they are trusting more on carrying research. So they are trusting more on listening to what their users, what the customers, what the clients want, and acting upon that. So I guess that when a company is new on this kind of research, they want to try, but they don't want to invest big because they don't trust the process exactly because they never did it before. So I guess it's a good option for them to start with synthetic users because it's like a small chance. The investment is smaller. They make a mistake or something. It's not as big as doing it with real users and maybe, oh, it was all for nothing. No. So I would say that investment wise, also time wise, it's so much faster to just ask whatever You want to ask to synthetic users because you get the answers right on time. You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for the recruitment of the real people. You don't have to wait for the appointments, interview appointment, or to actually do the interview and then to analyze it. No, it's so much faster. So I would
Yeah.
say, in terms of time and in terms of money, it's I could understand why companies do synthetic uses, and I'm not against it. I think it's a very good idea, but I don't think it's a valid idea for everything. Maybe combine it. That would be a good idea, for example.
Got you. So, do you recommend it's best for maybe someone who's starting research, getting started with it? It's best to start with synthetic users first and then look into the real, maybe human focused research. Maybe even someone who's new, who hasn't understood research in detail, maybe someone who's starting the job, for them to even have these sandboxed environments to play. How does research looks like? Is that a good idea to start with?
That's a very good question. Actually, I think that I might be probably biased, but I guess
Okay.
as I started my job and there was no AI, so I'm a little bit old school, we could say, in this kind of sense. So I would always go for first with real users. I think the experience that give you talking directly with the users and understanding what they need and thinking what you want to ask, gathering the information. I think this kind of activities or this kind of process can help you then ask more accurate questions when you have synthetic users. So I think the experience that you get from asking about real users, from understanding what they are really saying to you, it's worth to doing it first. I would say, but that's my opinion. I could be totally wrong. But I would always, if I wanted to start, I would I would straight go to like talking with real humans. And then maybe I could combine it because, of course, as I said, it's much faster, it's much cheaper. But yeah, I would probably start with real humans.
Awesome. I think that's insightful. I'm sure somewhere there is a space, right? I think it's best to try all the options out there and then include as part of your research, like you recommend. Thanks for sharing. Now, I wanted to understand, I think research is like one touch point you mentioned is about how it is becoming very difficult. I think there is obviously research means there is a thought that it's going to be time consuming, right? You have to find the audience, you have to ask the right questions, you have to find the right insights, and then find out what we have to do with the data, right? Now, what's the hardest part in doing research today? I know AI is there today, and it's supporting us in few of the areas. What are some areas you think the research is still hard and still the old way of doing?
The first ones that come to my mind can be either one on the side of the company and on the side of companies, and the other one on the side of users that are being interviewed or like that we are doing research with. Starting with the side of the companies, I said before that every time more companies are willing to do research, but still I feel, I don't know, I guess for us, no, we are used to doing user research and that we see the benefits from that. It's like it seems something obvious. It seems obvious, right? If you want to understand more your public, your consumers, or if you want to understand whether a new feature is interesting to them, or if you want to know anything about your customers, you should talk to them, right? You should ask
Yeah.
them how they feel. But I feel like not many companies know, but I feel like there's a lot of reluctance for companies to invest on this. Of course, it's better than it was some years ago. I will
Mhm.
repeat it, but still, I don't think it's like a process or a common expense that companies have. Okay, for sure, we're going to do research. It's not something that companies count on normally, or maybe big companies that have big budgets, it's easier for them. So I feel that one of the challenges in this side is maybe educating or make companies understand the value of doing user research, customer research, and that they include it in their processes. So I would say on this side, it's a challenge. And another challenge in the side of customers, consumers, users, you name it, I would say is they have to want to take the time to answer your surveys or answer your questions for the interview or coming to a workshop or a focus group where you ask those questions. In the past, I didn't encounter this problem because the research that we did was paid for people to have an interview with us. We would pay them, and it was a reward for the time that they were devoting to us. But not all the research, the interviews that we are doing are paid. Not all the research that companies are doing are paid. And in a world that goes so fast as it's going now, I feel that people have less time to dedicate to you to answer whatever questions you may have, even if it's asynchronous and it's just a survey. And I would say that's another problem, that getting the direct information of users, of people, is becoming a little bit more difficult, I would say, challenging.
So you touched upon synchronous, right? So can you unpack it? Do you see some human behavior change with respect to maybe synchronous versus asynchronous way of collecting data, of collecting feedback? Would love to get your insight.
Yeah, I would do a parallelism, an example. For example, the newer generations, I talk about Gen Z, I'm talking about it now. For example, I don't want to generalize, but this is something that has been said, that they don't like to talk on the phone. They prefer to do their things by writing. For example, if I want to book a restaurant, if it's easier for me to do it on the internet without talking to anyone, it's easier from the perspective of someone from the Gen Z. They say, oh no, it gives me anxiety to talk to someone on the phone. I prefer to just answer via writing. So maybe that would be something that will happen, that people would say, oh, could say, I don't know, that this is a prediction. I don't know if it's going to happen, but this is something that could happen. Oh, doing an actual interview with someone, if they ask me something that I don't know of, even if as researchers we repeat there are no correct or wrong answers. We just want to know your opinion. If you don't know something, it's okay. That's also an insight for me. We try to do these things to take care of the person that we're doing research with. But yeah, something that could happen is that people may end up preferring synchronous research than the synchronous one when I ask you in real time questions. So maybe it's easier for them just answer a survey and I can stop answering whenever I want and continue resume whenever I want. I have this kind of flexibility instead of being stuck with someone for an hour or so. That could be something that could happen. I don't know if it will, but I did the parallelism with the phone because this is something that is happening. Sometimes even myself, I prefer to have the information written and not calling because I don't know, what if someone says something that I didn't write down and then that's valuable information that I'm going to need, right? So yeah, that could be something that could happen. I don't know.
Awesome. I think that's insightful. This is something that we have seen it, do see in the research space, right? I think there is a lot of talk on how do you prepare for your audiences, right? I think audiences are continuing to change and we have to study and be comfortable with the right tools and the right solutions that needs to be given for the audience to collect data. That's very insightful, Ariadna. Thanks for sharing. I wanted to ask you, we know that AI is changing the way we collect and make sense of feedback today, right? All things about customer feedback. Can you tell me what do you see it's promising, where it is promising, and where do you think AI is being overhyped? I know there are a lot of AI tools out there. In every problem, there is obviously a tool. People are using ChatGPT, Claude. I wanted to know specifically with respect to where do you see it's promising? Like you mentioned, I think transcription is clearly a big pain, right?
Yeah.
So besides that, what are some areas where AI is obviously a must-have? Then where do you see AI is being overhyped? Maybe there are areas the AI solutions are there that may not be needed.
Yeah, so transcription is definitely one of them. You don't know how long, like how many hours I've spent transcribing. So for me, that was for our team, that was a very good thing. Also for analyzing, I think when you have a lot of information to analyze, trying to sort it out with AI, it's a very good idea because sometimes you have to read so many things to get a hint of how something works. And I think AI, it's a very good resource to help you understand a context or a product or something that it's maybe conceptually difficult to understand. And I love to ask AI sometimes when there are things that is difficult. Okay, can you ask me if I was a teenager or if it was a child? Could you explain it to me? And I think for me it really works because because AI tries to explain it with a lot of examples, with a lot of parallelisms that can help you understand better. And I would say to understand context, it's also a very good resource. On another aspect that it's very good, I would say, for example, if you want to analyze consumers' feedback, people feedback from a product or a service or an experience, sometimes you have a lot of reviews. Or like, for example, social listening, no? You have a lot of content there that you should analyze. And I think that using AI to help you sort out all the information, analyze it, it's a very good thing. I wouldn't just use AI to do so, but I think it would help me. For example, a very recent use of AI that I used in this kind of sense, not as a researcher, but as a user, ¿vale? Okay. So I wanted to book a hotel and a booking, and there were so many reviews. And now they have incorporated a beta AI
Okay.
in which you can ask them. I think Amazon also has this. You can ask to summarize all the pains and the positive aspects of that hotel. And I would say it's a good job because you don't have to read, I don't know, 100 reviews or the first 50 reviews just to get a grasp on that. But also the problem is that the summary that AI makes out of these 100 reviews or 1000, whatever, I would say for me it's not super accurate because there are so many things that it misses because what it's doing is summarize it. So it's summarizing in four, for example, they give you 4 positive points and 4 negative points of the host, but I feel it's not completely accurate. There are so many things that are commented. If you actually read the reviews, and that's what I did just to compare, okay, is AI telling me everything that I should know of? No, it's not. There are so many things that for me would be important that AI is not telling me. So if I take this exact example and I take it to my professional life, I get to know that there are so many things that AI is not telling me because it's been compelled to summarize the whole information that I'm asking. So there are so many things that I'm going to be missing and that I can find there the insight that I was looking for. So this is where I would also say that AI is a little bit overhyped. I think you use that. You can, for me, it's always AI. It's always to be used as a way of helping you. You should still use your mind, your brain to check things because, as I said, AI summarizes and it's not saying everything because it's impossible to say everything. I know, but yeah, this is where I would say it's a little bit overhyped.
Got you. Awesome. I think that's very interesting. I do see that oversight still is needed, and that's an emphasis. I do see that. I've felt similar experiences once. Even in few of the Google reviews, there was a search, and I was seeing has it classified really right? Sometimes you feel like, okay, you're still worried about it. I've seen it in Amazon as well on product reviews. Sometimes when I go to the negative reviews, you will see the positives inside the negative reviews. So then I say, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's still needed. I think some element of human oversight is still needed.
Yeah. Another thing, sorry, just to mention, another
Yeah,
thing that I
sure.
wanted to mention on the good uses that we can make out of AI. I think the writing is also a good thing
Yeah.
that you can use. For example, you can sometimes vomit whatever you want to really convey, and you don't care about the how you are putting it, or like even for when we are writing on another language that it's not our mother tongue, right? So I could write it as it comes with no order. Also, even I don't know how to say this, with when your orthography is not very good or you're making grammar mistakes, it doesn't matter because AI will turn it into something that it's actually readable. So that for me it's another good use of AI. But we've also seen as AI has a very people who use AI for content, unless you give on how you want AI to rewrite what you told them, what you told AI, it might sound like a robot. There are some words, for example, the other day I was reading a report that said that the word delving into something
Yeah.
had its use had increased a lot because AI uses this word by a lot. And also, so I really like to use AI for writing or for rewriting things that maybe I didn't write or I could have written better. But you need to always check that it doesn't sound too robotic, or people sometimes when they are reading they are bored because everything sounds the same. It's a double thing to check.
That's true. Yeah. I think it goes on this is circle, right? I think AI is trying to become more human in writing, and then humans are using AI to write. I think it's a kind, it goes on circle. And recently, I think I did come across this interesting project from Wikipedia. They have opened more of a small skill which has all things about words that humans write, and they are able to differentiate whether it is written by AI or not. They have put it out there. It's called as Humanizer. I'll add it to the show notes, the link to the GitHub. So what they have done is they wanted to do good, which means they wanted to find whether it is human or not. It's because Wikipedia is continuing to get a lot of AI written content. They wanted to mitigate that, and then they launched it. Then I was thinking that if people are going to use this, how would Wikipedia continue to find, right? So it's a kind of a double-edged sword. I think they're inviting more AI to write more human. So it's an interesting space. I do see that this will go on, and AI will try to catch up to be human. And probably we will, how we differentiate ourselves as humans or not by solving a CAPTCHA on a website. Maybe AI has to have these checks for content also to say that more of a stamping to say, okay, it's from AI and how much human it is or not.
Yeah.
Just sharing what I came across the last few weeks. Now, shifting gears from here, so I wanted to understand if you could have a magic wand, say fix one part of your team's process on how you do research, what would it be?
Interesting question. Let me think. I guess synthetic users will be a thing much more than are now. I think that it's probably the the information. I think they would be more accurate than what they are now, so they could be more useful. They could be more reliable to ask things. So I think that maybe the real-time research won't be done as much, and you could even ask to synthetic users to answer surveys, I think. Also, the way of in which the timings would also be reduced, no? Before we could maybe spend 3 months to synthesize information gathered out of 16 people that we've interviewed. Now, some years from now, I think it's going to be like very immediate. So I think another thing that will change is the immediacy in which we get insights or results. Still, I have my doubts, but we will see, right? But I have my
Sure.
doubts that the information gathered could be as trustworthy and reliable as doing it as we do now, which is this real interactions with people. Because also another thing that happens when you're talking with real people is that, oh, maybe you say something that I didn't ask, but you just mention it because sometimes we speak more than, for example, maybe you are asking me a particular question, but I'm also giving some more context that you didn't ask me about, right? So I feel like it's going to be difficult with AI to replicate this. So maybe we have a conversation in real time. I can talk about something that can trigger something in you and then ask me some other question that it's going to be the good question because that question is going to discover or it's going to make this discover something that you couldn't have discovered otherwise. And I feel that with synthetic users it's going to be difficult to reach up to this point. I'm not saying that it's going to be impossible because we see how the speed in which AI is running, but I would like to see how it's done because I think it's very difficult. So let's see how it is. So I would say in terms of timing, everything is going to be improved. Also, money-wise, in terms of investment, there are going to be reductions on that. And also, I guess that another thing that happens is that so far, like for example, when you do a website, you are thinking that your website is going to be read by real people. And every time more, it's not only going to be read by real people, but also with AI. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that there is a different way of processing the information when a human reads it or when AI. So I guess the way, I don't know, like the information architecture or like the way of writing or where you can find the information is going to be centered. It's not going to be only user centered or centric as we are trying to do now with the whole consumer centric, human centered, and it's going AI centered. The way in what we express things or put the information is going to be addressed for agents, AI agents, and not meant for people. I would say that could be
Awesome. I
another
love that
difference.
phrase, how you said more as parallels, right? I think human-centered to AI-centered.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think we do see the shift that's taking place, and yeah, I think there's more needs in that space, right? I think how to
Yeah.
prepare ourselves for AI. Yeah, I think I also wanted to dive deeper into permission architecture. I like that phrase, how you phrased it. Certainly, I would love to get in touch with you to understand that deeply. Now, I wanted to understand a few more questions before we get into the rapid fire. I want to know, say, if you were to start over in your career in customer research, from what you know now, what would you do differently to do customer research today? So I'm sure this question is primarily tailored for people who are listening, starting to start their career. Wanted you to share your insights. What would you do it differently from what you know now?
I think there are two questions here. One is what I would do different, and the other one is what would I recommend to people who are
Yeah.
starting. Starting with the first one, what I would have done differently. I think that professionally wise, the mistakes that I may have made in my professional life helped me to get where I am now. So I don't think I will change many things. I'm also happy that I started this path, this professional path without AI, because I feel like a lot of knowledge that I know it from experience and from trial and error and from failing, and you have to fail fast. So I don't think I would change much. Maybe that's maybe a personal background. I would have liked to be more in touch with technology and product with digital that I've been used in the past, but that also depends on the nature of the projects that you encounter. And I haven't encountered in the past so many projects regarding these topics, but this is something that really interests me. So maybe I could have done something to delve into that. Yeah. And regarding the recommendations or tips that I would give to someone who's start, I would actually recommend not using AI so much at the beginning. Of course, AI can help you go faster, but try to start to create, for example, a survey script or an interview script without AI. Start with a blank paper. Let's see what questions you can get. And then, of course, use AI to improve it, or maybe the ways of ask AI to challenge you to improve the script. Not only by asking, okay, just improve what I did. No, then ask AI to explain to you why the improvements that AI is suggesting is a good thing. Ask AI to teach you a bit on this sense. I think that could be a good use of AI. It's a good use for people who are starting and for me myself also, and probably for you. But I think it's especially good when you're starting. That would be my first tip. Probably the second tip would be follow people on LinkedIn who are constantly talking about customer experience or user research and read what they are posting about, their reflections, comment on them if you have something that you want to add, because On one side, that could help you create a feed on LinkedIn that is talking about the things that are interesting to you, and you can see different perspectives. And I think that could be a good thing. And also, you get to be aware of the topics that are trending at the moment. And I think that also helps not only the people, but also the companies, because there are some content that it's not always related to a person who posted, but to a company. Yeah, just to check people and companies that are in the field that you're interested in, and read I don't know, several times per week what it's being said about those topics. I think that helps you have also confidence, because when you're starting this world, you don't have a lot of confidence, or you're thinking, how am I supposed to interview an oncologist and talk about cancer treatments if I didn't study anything related to science? But with experience, you realize that you don't have to know everything, because you're the interview and you're asking the other person who is the one that has the knowledge, right? So I think with these two tips, it can also develop your confidence in this field.
Got you. That's super helpful. I think I'm sure it'll benefit many for them to get started.
These are the two tips the two main tips that come to my mind. Of course, if I had more time to think, I'm sure that I can get many, but yeah, I would say those two.
Sure. I think before this call, I think we were discussing about how people can find jobs, right? I think you mentioned about that there are various job titles that are floating around, right? I think bigger companies are recruiting for specific roles, but then all things come towards customer research, right? So I wanted to understand, hear from you on what are some places where people who wanted to get into research, where they can look for, and what could be a good entry level start, right? What job titles to look for, in your opinion?
What job titles? That's actually a very good question, and a very difficult question to answer, because there are so many ways of putting the same job description, but with the under different titles. For example, if I look for customer experience, it can refer to the customer experience that we've been talking about, talking with users, but it can also be referred to the customer experience that you get. I've seen jobs talking about answering in a call center that are customer experience, or the voice of the customer. So I feel that it's so personal to the company, these titles, and that it doesn't mean anything, because I could say, oh yeah, customer experience is a very good title tag for you to look for, but it's actually not always the case, because I don't know, I feel like sometimes it's not everyone makes the same use of these titles as we do. Or I'm not saying that our use is the correct one, but maybe the understanding that I had for customer experience is not the same understanding that other companies have. This is why I'm saying it's a difficult question. Sometimes what I do is just ask AI, okay, I'm interested in this kind of projects. I want to do this. I want to get a little bit more into product. What job titles should I look for? And you could get like different titles, but just know that not all the titles are going to be the same, are going to have the same meaning for all the companies. So it can work for some and it can not work for others. And what I'm also seeing is that sometimes I feel like, it's my opinion, teams are asking for unicorns, because they are asking for someone who has a very good knowledge of UI, user interface, and also of UX, but also that knows how to program, because it's very important also that this person has knowledge of programming languages. And it's, oh, maybe you're looking for three different people in the same role or two. I would tell to those people who are starting not to be discouraged by this kind of job descriptions. Sometimes we say that we are looking, of course, I say that I'm looking for the best thing that I can find. Don't let that prevent you from applying the jobs. As I said, I got a job in user research when I had never done user research before. So companies will make their wish list of all the things that you should know, and when talk and speak, I don't know how many languages, just you apply, and then just be honest with what you know and be confident with what you know. And I think that people can get surprised by how many doors that could open, because the comfortable thing is just to say, oh no, they are asking for too many things. This is not me. I'm not going to get the job. Yeah, okay. You may not get the job, but you can also get it. So from the point that some companies are contacting you after applying to this job offers to interview you, that means that they have some interest that you can offer to these companies something. They saw that you could offer something. So for me, that's positive. So yeah, don't be discouraged by all these descriptions. Also, by the way, so many job descriptions are written with AI. Okay.
Yeah,
So, you know,
yeah.
yeah, don't be discouraged by that, I would say too.
Thank you, Ariana. This is super helpful. I'm sure this will help many. I wanted to ask you, Baran, this is super helpful. I have a few quick fire questions and then we will go for a close. All right. So, firstly, I wanted to know maybe what is the one book you would recommend for people to read who wanted to start on research?
I read a book in uni, actually. I read it for a subject called organizational behavior. And this book is called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow by Daniel Kahneman, who was an economics Nobel Prize winner. And what I really liked is that it talked about a lot of biases that we humans have. And I think that when you're doing research with people or that you are reviewing the customer experience of these people, knowing about biases can seem like a very trivial thing. But when you read about them and you really delve into those biases, you realize that it's true.
And next is what's your one secret AI tool that is not mainstream yet that you use at during your work? Maybe not Claude or ChatGPT. Besides that, if there is one tool if you wanted to share with our audience.
Let me think. Okay, so I have two things. You can get whichever you want. One thing that I've recently discovered, which is it's not new, it's just that I didn't know about it before. It's
Oh,
integrating, for example, it's using when you're using PowerPoint to do some reports and stuff. I knew that there was Copilot integrated on that, but I don't know. I did the things myself. I didn't use it. But what I've discovered is that it can do so much on an Excel and on a PowerPoint. For example, you can have everything translated without the need of downloading the file and uploading it to AI and having it translated. No, you can do everything. It can help you. For example, I'm not super good at design, graphic design. So sometimes I have trouble too when I want to create new slides. It's like, okay, I'm going to get some inspiration here or there, but I don't know, I cannot do it myself. Copilot now will help me a lot with that. I directly ask, can you create a design for me with this purpose? Nah, 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 nah. And actually, the design that created for me, it was a very good one. And I would have never created it myself. And it was so fast. So I think that's a good, it's not a super secret, but as I didn't know, I want to share it also with people that they can really do that. And before we did a lot of things hand by hand, or, oh, we want to change this. And now we have to change all the slides. Not anymore.
yeah.
And another thing that I mentioned that it's on my Archer Slack is I mentioned it before, it's Dovetail. It's also, I think it's a very good AI tool for, as I said, it's transcribing, but also analyzing and categorizing and tagging the information of each
Mhm.
person. And I think I really recommend you to use this tool. It's very
Thanks for sharing. I think sometimes this is what I think the products what we use, right? They're obviously they're not AI native earlier. Now they when they embed it, many a times we it goes unnoticed and we may not be using to the fullest. I did discover last week some new features inside my Gmail, which is AI driven. I was surprised. Okay, where was this? I
good.
think I didn't see it a month ago. And I see it, I think it's immensely helpful when you see that some of your workflows could be reimagined in an
Yeah.
AI native way and how it is productive for you. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing.
And right
And
now we are not so much used, sorry, just to say, to add just one more thing, it's that
yeah,
we were not as used to automatization.
yeah.
I'm getting into this world, but also the so many things that you can do with this. It's amazing when you start automatizing. This is another good use of AI. When you start automatizing things, just answer this to these kind of messages that are these kind of emails that I get with this specific subject. You can directly answer them. I think that's another word that I forgot to talk about, that it's also a very good way of AI use.
Sure. Thank you, Ariadna. This is a very interesting conversation. I really appreciate you. Where can people find and connect with you?
Yeah, on LinkedIn under my name, Ariadna Roman Porro. They can find me if anyone has, I don't know, something that they want to share with me or some questions. I'm open to answer.
I'll add your links in the description. And thank you, everyone, for watching, and see you in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.